Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again in this YouTube astrological segment. I'm going to be talking about astrology and divorce. Now, many marriages end in divorce, and I think it's like 50%, at least in the United States, end in that or separation. I want to check and confirm that exact stat, but I know it's a fairly staggering percentage. The thing about it is, though, astrology can indicate where there's a certain propensity or proclivity for that. And the seventh house is connected with marriage, a significant other, and all, and divorce as well, possible divorce. It could be, anytime if you have, like, say, like in your chart, if you've got like a malefic transiting the seventh house, it does increase that possibility of a separation, assuming you are, if you are married, of course. And you could, Pluto, can flat out, Pluto is about obliteration, destruction, but it's also about revival. So, it could indicate, if you have Pluto transiting the seventh, where you could have some kind of separation from a significant other, a marriage partner. It could be or it could just be a separation temporarily. And then, Pluto's about revival, rebirth, regeneration, but it doesn't mean you couldn't come back with that person at some point. But it can often point to some transformation in a significant other situation. So if you are already, if you're married, it can increase the chance of a divorce at that time. But if you're not married, it can indicate that you might actually change your marital status for the better and transform it. But anyway, Uranus transiting the seventh, that Uranus is about disruptions, and it could cause all kinds of really upheaval and disruption and chaos in one's marriage, and it could be an abrupt, very quick change. If you have, like, say, in your chart, if your Venus is strongly afflicted, it could indicate a possible separation, or indicate, in some cases, if you have Venus afflicted, like I have in my chart, not being married, but in some cases, if you are married and your Venus is strongly afflicted in the chart, it could indicate a greater possibility or propensity for a divorce. If you have, like, say, Venus opposite the moon, that could be a separation from someone you feel close to home with. And if, like, say, a male, the moon is really could be about important women in our lives, and really it could be, you could be feel like a separation could take place from that person. And in looking at that, or at least with those that you feel close to home with, and that can include women. But the thing about it is, if you're having, say if you have Saturn, like, opposite your moon in your chart, this could indicate a separation or divorce from your family members. And the thing about, I'm sorry, not just your families, I'm sorry, your mother and your father is what I mean. Or even if the sun opposes your moon in your natal chart, because the sun can be connected with the father as well as Saturn. Now, the thing about this too is, transits can bring about negative things connected with relationships. It's not just about transits hitting the seventh. You could have, say, transit Saturn making an adverse aspect to your Venus or your seventh house cusp, or even the seventh house ruler, and this could bring about some sad despondency and restrictions in connection with relationships, which can include, the seventh house is the significant other. And thing about it too is, if you're having, let's take, some other, points in your chart. If you have, like, say if you have Venus in your 12th house in your chart, this could be somebody that goes through some secret sorrows in connection with love, and it doesn't necessarily exclude a divorce. At least I see it as that. It could be something too, where if you have some other elements, could be, if you got Saturn in the seventh house in your chart, or even if you have Pluto, or even in your natal chart, if you have a malefic in your seventh house, This could be something where even if you are married, it could indicate some divorce at a later point in time. Like if you have Saturn in your 7th house. I mean, Saturn in the 7th can sometimes just indicate an older marriage partner, somebody that's very mature, disciplined, responsible, but it could indicate that the marriage might take laborious work and effort. If you have, like, I mean, Venus in adverse aspect to your Saturn in your natal chart, this could show that a love relationship can take a lot of laborious work and effort and very arduous work. I have Saturn in Taurus in my 12th house of secret sorrows and restrictions and limitations, and I have it square my Venus. And this could indicate to me that my marriage, if I would get married, that it could take a lot of laborious and persistent Taurus like effort, and it may thing about it too is, and it could be with perhaps, I mean, having Venus in Leo, it could be with a Venus, I mean, sorry, a Leo marriage partner, a Leo sun, moon, or ascendant, or one that embodies those characteristics. And but at the same time, it could also indicate that there can be difficulties when I have, if I was to become married, and which doesn't exclude a divorce. The thing about divorce too, I mean, if you're going through, say if you're in a divorce, and you got like transit Mars in the 7th house, this could indicate a very contentious or acrimonious one, perhaps, and it could be, I mean, and if, like, say if it's in Scorpio with a lot of vengeful energy, a lot of caustic energy as well, and this is very, this is to me, I mean, divorces, I mean, as I stated before, I mean, they're certainly very frequent, to say the least. And you don't always, I mean, have to look at astrology to understand, I mean, if you're compatible or not with somebody. A lot of people can see and forecast when something could happen. I mean, if there's certain animosity between the partners, and you understand, even if like you're even a few months into a marriage and something just doesn't seem right, you don't always need astrology to know that something is going negative may happen, and it might be difficult to work out. And thing about it too is, I mean, if you're and also a lot of times, I mean, if you look at like the synastry between two charts, and if you have a lot of adverse aspects in synastry, I mean, those can be indicators right there that a divorce has a greater chance of happening if you're simply just not compatible. So it's not just about looking at the 7th house and Venus, and also Juno can play a role as well, as this could be that marriage partner that you truly may actually need, as in contrast to Venus, that one that you might want, or the one on the cusp of the 7th house as well. This is I mean, Juno, if Juno is heavily afflicted, it could indicate, I believe, a greater chance or propensity for some kind of divorce or separation. If you have, like, say, another thing too is that, like, say if you have Saturn making an adverse aspect to your 7th house cusp, your Venus, your 7th house ruler, this could indicate that the father may not approve of your marriage partner, and sometimes when family gets involved in a negative way, it could become a contentious situation for the marriage, and that in itself could indicate perhaps a separation. I mean, my Saturn makes an opposition, it's adversarial, makes an opposition to my 7th house cusp, and there was a time when I was like 19, I was going to get married very young, and my grandfather opposed the person that I was going to be with, and the person I have Scorpio on the cusp of the 7th house, but the person that I was going to be likely marrying, she had her moon in Scorpio, so I thought that was very interesting. And thing about it too is that, and of course, I mean, the older person having Saturn in Taurus, I think it could indicate too that I see that these older people, family members, and whether it would be a father or a grandfather, I see them as somewhat stubborn, obstinate, and intransigent, and unwavering. And I think, I mean, I did see him as that. He was actually a sun in Leo. He was a really great guy, very magnanimous, very generous person, but he did have, I mean, strong fixed chart, and he was very, I mean, very unwavering, very immutable to say the least. So those are some things to look at in astrology as far as divorce, astrology and divorce may go. And the thing about it too is, and again, as I stated before, a lot of it can depend on, certain aspects that whether they're natal or they're by transit progression. Again, review a little bit malefics that are in the 7th. Your Venus strongly afflicted, your 7th house cusp strongly afflicted. You have certain transits that are hitting the 7th house or making an adverse aspect to your natal Venus, your Juno, or even your 7th house cusp. Those are some things to look at as far as divorce can go in astrology. And like I said, if you have transit Pluto hitting the 7th, whether it's by transit or progression, it could be one that could be very turbulent. But remember, as I stated before as well, Pluto can be about destruction and obliteration. Pluto will often tear something down, but it could also revive something as well. So those are some things to look at. And even if you have, like, say, Saturn, the 5th house is about love and romance as well, and that can be connected with the significant other or marriage partner. A malefic transiting the 5th house, or whether it's by transit or progression, can be an indicator as well for some kind of divorce or separation. So anyway, people, well, anyway, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment for astrology and divorce. And until next time, people, Edwin Learnard saying stay well.